Welcome to Dare to be Seen. Join our host, Alyssa DiNapoli, aka Alyssa Vulpez, author, artist coach, and singer-songwriter, as she engages in down-to-earth, insightful, and inspiring conversations with female indie singer-songwriters, composers, and musicians. We shall discuss the lessons and personal stories of women who dare to be seen, scratching beneath the surface to explore challenging truths, forge deeper connections, and foster personal transformation. Get inspired, and if you enjoy the show, spread the word by subscribing and reviewing it. And now, let's get started.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Dare to be Seen. Today, I will be talking with Diane Foy. Diane is not a musician. She is a creative branding and PR coach, and she helps artists, musicians, and actors attract fans, media, and industry so that they can make money with their talents. She is a multi-passionate creative entrepreneur, drawing from photography, fashion, makeup artistry, as well as her experience as a journalist and an entertainment publicist. She is also the host of the podcast Sing, Dance, Act, and Thrive, in which she has conversations with musicians, actors, dancers, and industry influencers on what it takes to succeed. So I am very excited to have her on board today to pick her brains on how to market yourself as a musician. Now, before we get started today, if you suffer from stage nerves and your anxiety gets in the way of your performance, it's time to discover the 3 secrets that will stop stage fright and allow you to perform with authentic confidence even if you're not an extrovert. Register today for my free Dare to be Seen masterclass, where you will discover how to magnify your presence and command the stage so you can perform at your best in front of your audience. Just head on over to tinyurl.com/dare to be seen masterclass. That's tinyurl.com/dare to be seen masterclass. And now, here's a guest for today. So we have in the studio today Diane Foy, all the way from Toronto, Canada. Welcome to the show, Diane.
Thanks for having me.
So Diane, as I already mentioned, is a PR and marketing coach, and she is also a podcast host. And today I would really like to pick your brain, Diane, about how to help artists, specifically musicians, in their careers in the arts. And I know that you are very... really, you have a lot of experience in this. You've been doing this for a long time. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of things, I wanted to ask you about your story. How did you actually get into this sector or this career, if you like?
Yeah, so my whole life I've just loved arts and entertainment. Like I loved movies, television, music. That was my escape from the world. I just loved what performers did and always wanted to be a part of it. And I wasn't really a performer. I was way too shy for that. But it's like I want to be around that. I want to be around the entertainment. So, my first thought was I'll be a photographer. That way I can photograph artists. And so that was my main priority at that time. So I went to school for photography. I was a photographer for a while, but I only wanted to shoot like musicians and actors and models. And to make a living as a photographer, you kind of got to do more, at least when you're starting out. I moved to Toronto. I was from BC, and I moved to Toronto thinking I would do photography, but then I ended up being a makeup artist. So I was a makeup artist for a long time. And again, I always wanted to work with the musicians and the actors and all that. Um, and then I was a journalist for a little bit, and it seemed like I loved all the careers, but they weren't really, I guess, what I was meant to do. They were fun, but I think the reason behind them was because I wanted to be in entertainment, and I thought those were my ways in. So it wasn't necessarily the love of photography or the love of makeup. It was, I just want to be around you guys. So when I realized that, it's like, okay, obviously I want to be in the business side of the entertainment business. And so I went to school for entertainment management. I kind of thought publicity would be my thing, but I was kind of open to it all. But yeah, I started my publicity company right after. That was 2004. And I just kind of started doing publicity for friends' bands. Um, and it just kind of took off pretty quickly because I was the new shiny publicist on the scene. So, um, longtime managers started to hire me as a publicist for their artists, and yeah, so then that's been 16 years of the roller coaster of a having your own business life, where same it's the same life as an artist. It's like sometimes you're really really busy, and then there's nothing, then you're really really busy, and then there's nothing. And, I loved it for a long time, but after a while, publicity started to be harder and harder for the independent, lesser known artists that I loved working with. So I would, you know, th- they have a single to release, an album, something, tour. Okay, I need a publicist. And, but it's hard to kind of get publicity when you don't have an active social media following, if you don't have a fan base that will come see your shows. So media is not going to be interested either. And sometimes artists think that, well, that's the way to get fans and industry attention is to get media. But the media is not interested unless you have, a fan base and something going on, a story to tell. So I was getting frustrated doing publicity. It wasn't fun anymore because I couldn't get my artists anything, unless they had all this stuff together, but most of them didn't. So I would send them on their way of like, okay, come back when you have worked on this. But I discovered coaching, and then it was like a light bulb went off, and coaching was the missing ingredient. It was the missing piece of the puzzle because there was no one showing them how to do that. So I find a lot of artists waste a lot of money and time hiring publicists and radio promoters and digital marketers and social media managers before they're ready. So, and then they wonder why they don't get the results that they wanted. So, I really stress being authentic in your marketing. So, I have this roadmap that I've come up with that I coach artists on, but there's a free resource as well. And I can kind of go through the steps of it, of what in the end will make you a dream client for agents and managers and labels and publicists and radio promoters, because you'll have your shit together and you'll know what you're offering. So that's kind of where that came from and how I ended up here.
Right, that makes sense. And before we get into that, one more thing I wanted to ask you was around something that you shared in, I believe, episode 56 of your podcast, where you talk about your why. I was listening to that episode earlier today, and it struck me as very important to know your why and to go deeper. I heard that before, but I think it's important to actually know if an artist, for example, was to basically ask you for help to come to become a client, it's important to know where the coach is coming from, because we want to be able to trust that person. We want to know that this person is not just there to get our money, but they actually really truly care. So do you want to share with us your why?
Sure. Yeah. And that's what I coach artists on too, because it's the basis of everything you do. And when you figure out why you're really doing this, because for me, my why could be I love arts and entertainment. But if you dig deeper, it's because no matter what's going on in my life, I escape to the world that actors and musicians create for us. And also because I was shy, I was really attracted to performers because they seemed so full of personality. They seemed fearless. They seemed entertaining, and everyone wants to be around them because they're just putting themselves out there. They're taking risks. And I just really admired that. And it inspires me to be more real with myself. So that's kind of why I do it and where my love of performers comes from. And then for artists, I like to really dig into why they're doing it because career in the arts, it's a tough road. It's hard. And there's going to be obstacles. And if you're not clear on your motivation, if you're not clear on why you're chasing this dream, it's going to be really easy to quit and not keep going when things get you down. And so if I really try and get artists to really dig deep and just keep asking yourself why. Oh, because I love guitar. Okay, why? No matter what you answer, I want to ask you why. So that you have to kind of dig deeper. And then that way you'll just keep going. You'll know your motivation. You know exactly why you do this. And then it's something you could share on social media. It's something you could share on your bio and your why becomes just part of who you are. It's part of when we get into marketing speak, your brand. And so a lot of artists shy away from marketing and PR and branding because they think it's inauthentic. But in actual, like the way I do it anyways, um, I just want to, your brand is just who you are and figuring out what's unique about you. What are your stories? What challenges have you overcome? What is your personality? What is your interests? All these other things really are a part of why people are attracted to you. So, no matter how amazing your music is, someone that maybe doesn't have as good a music and you're wondering why they're getting all the attention, it's because they're showing up, they're expressing themselves, their personality, they're making personal connections, they're active on social media, they're doing the work, basically. And that's kind of where the 6 phases come from too. It's like if you follow the roadmap and really stop. Everyone wants to skip to the promotion part. Um, so it takes some effort to say, "Stop. Let's figure out your why first. Let's figure out what you really want."
Mhm. So, would you say that's the first step on the roadmap? And then, if so, what's next?
So yeah, the phase 1 is clarity. So it's vision and goals, really figuring out what is your 10-year vision? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? If it's not touring the world and or being a famous movie star, then what is it? Because maybe you're chasing the wrong dream. Just really getting clear on where you see yourself in 10 years and what kind of life you want. What kind of career do you want? And then the goal setting is breaking that down to, okay, where do you see yourself at 5 years? Okay, so then what would be your 1 year goal? And really breaking down your goal setting so that every little step you take is one step closer to that future vision. Phase 2 is confidence.
Just before we get onto the phase two, one thing that I have encountered in my coaching is art that sometimes artists don't actually know what they want. And so I was wondering, what are your strategies to deal with that, if that has ever happened to you with one of your clients?
Yeah, yeah, sometimes they don't know. And I think it's it can be fantasy. That's why I picked 10 years because it's far enough in advance that anything can happen. And if you really take time to like sit quietly, just really vision. Okay, so 10 years from now, where are you? And where do you see yourself? Are you in a house? Are you in an apartment? What city are you in? Or you don't have to get that specific, but you can get, are you in the city or in the country? Are you traveling the world? Are you in a small town? It kind of brings it to your core values. You know, what is your ideal life? What do you want to be doing? And 10 years from now, you don't have to think about the reality, because sometimes that is a struggle for artists too. When I'm coaching them through this, it's like, yeah, but that would never happen, or that. No, no, no. When you're thinking 10 years, just let it go, let it flow, write everything down, and just start thinking about it. I think most people just don't think about it. And so it's not set in stone, your 10-year vision. You definitely will change course along the way, but it gives you motivation of the life that you want in 10 years. And then who do you need to be to have that? We all need, we all have things we need to kind of change or work on. Who do you need to be on your way to having that? It just takes some soul searching.
Yeah. I think also a lot of us don't spend a lot of time doing that. We spend a lot of time sometimes doing, being busy, but not actually looking within and reflecting, being
Yeah.
quiet, listening.
Yeah.
And
We're all go, 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 go.
yeah.
And then if you don't stop to think about what you really want, again, you might be chasing the wrong dream
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
going in a million different directions. You may know what you want, but you kind of get scattered in all the millions of different directions you could go in. You try and do it all at once and you really get nowhere. I know. I've done that.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, if you don't know what your destination is, then you're never going to get anywhere. It's like saying, well, if you want to go to Rome, well, you need to know exactly when you're going, where you're going, why you're going. If you just say, well, one day I'd like to go overseas, but I'm not sure. Well, you probably won't go anywhere. So, so, next, you were saying the next stage is confidence. So tell me more about that.
Yeah. So it's another area that artists want to skip. This is my struggle of like everyone wants everything now. And it's like, slow down. Because I think you've already been doing what you've been doing. You've already been skipping the phases and spinning your wheels going in circles. So trust me, take a moment to reflect and figure out your vision. And then, so the number 2 is confidence. And again, that's your why. So we talked about that. What is your why? What is your motivation? The other is core values. What are your core values? A lot of people don't stop to think about that. And then if you're clear on your core values, then every decision you make, does this align with my core values? Because you might get some crazy offer that you'd be crazy to turn down. Everyone's saying, oh, you're crazy if you turn that down. So you just go with it. But if you know your core values and you know your vision, then you might turn that down because it doesn't fit in with your plans. And the other way too. It's like if your core values are financial and security, well, probably going on a world tour all the time is not something that's going to fit with your values. So then it's also just evaluating your skills, your strengths, your weaknesses, just really getting clear on what you have to offer, and any limiting beliefs that come up. Let's tackle them now. Um, Sometimes you might not know until something comes up, but it's just really exploring, like, if deep down you really believe that you're never going to make money at this. Okay, let's address that. Let's try and counter that and explore it and getting over those limiting beliefs.
That's very interesting to me because, of course, everybody has limiting beliefs. We all do. And they stop us from going forward. And I'm curious as to your strategies to working with them. Do you have specific ways that you help your clients overcome limiting beliefs? And if so, what can you give us an example?
Well, I guess some strategies would be to really explore the belief and then try to counter it. Because if you really go, but is that really true? It's usually not. And then how can you, when that belief comes up, you want to have like a counter statement that you can address it with. Of like, okay, a limiting belief could be, I'm too old to make it. And, but a counter belief, whenever that kind of thought comes up, could be, no, age doesn't matter. Look at all I have to offer. And that's when you, again, when you know you're confident, you know your skills, your strengths, you can kind of talk yourself out of that limiting belief if you have the tools and you've already thought about it. So when that comes up, you go, no, look at so and so, look at so and so, they're rocking it. And no, these are my skills. This is my story. This is my talent. This is what I want to do and what I love to do. And I can make a living at this.
Right. So you're changing the story, and then that you tell yourself, and then you are reinforcing that by engaging in positive self-talk. So then you help your clients become more confident. Now they know what they want. They know why they want it. And then what happens next?
So then phase 3 is Captivate. When you think about who you're a fan of, if we're talking to musicians, like who are your favorite musicians? I'm sure you love them for more than just their music. You know, you probably love their attitude, you love their personality, or you connect to a story they tell, or you really connect to the lyrics, you know, that's part of who they are too. Or you love their image. You just love the way they look, you love the way they dress. So it's addressing that for you. It's really exploring your story from beginning to current. Like, what are your stories? And then also evaluating your personality and also image. So if you Captivate is just exploring those things. And again, it's not putting an image on you, it's figuring out what your unique style is. And some of that is researching who you're a fan of. Why do you love them? Do you like the way they dress? Would you dress like that? And then, but really, it comes down to story and then putting that story through your image and personality.
So tell me more about the story, because sometimes I think people might get confused about this. You know, we're told a lot in marketing speech that we need to have a story. The story is what sells and all of that. And sometimes I myself have found myself thinking, well, wait a minute, I'm not just one story. I'm more complicated than just one story. I've got millions of parts of me. I'm not just one thing. I don't want to be defined, if you like, by one single story. So, how do you tackle that objection, if you like?
I wouldn't even think it's an objection. It's like, yeah, you want to share everything about you. The more you share, the more you'll connect with people. And it doesn't have to be just about your art. You know, you could tell things that are nothing to do with your music, but it's part of who you are. It's maybe another interest you have, another hobby you have, or an experience that you've gone through. Any kind of thing, any stories that you have from your life or your thoughts, people can connect to that. Like if your story is you struggled as a you're abused, it's like all these different stories that you tell. There's going to be people that are going to really connect with you on that.
So the artists need to be open and vulnerable to share their story of whatever.
Yeah, that's it. Vulnerability. It's showing vulnerability. And that's what draws people to you, which is hard. It's hard to, share and be open. Um, but if this is what you want to do, and I guess I always relate it back to me. It's like, I totally understand where you're coming from because I was there too, or I'm still working on some things. I'm not an outgoing performer, so I've always been kind of private, not really telling my stories, but I I work on it. I do it more, and the more I do it, the more I realize, oh yeah, people are connecting. People are loving my stories and connecting and you get a me too. Oh, I've gone through that too. Um, and that's what connects you to people. And then when you make that connection, well then they'll at some point check out your music because they like you. So you don't have to always be just about your music.
I can imagine that for some people it might be scary to share these stories because of fear of rejection. If I show myself and somebody doesn't like me, then they'll reject me. That can be very scary, I think, especially for younger artists. And fair enough, as well. So I'm wondering though where the boundary is, because also there's a danger of oversharing. Is there a danger of oversharing? What's your opinion there?
Um, there can be. I mean, you also have to be prepared for the consequences of what you share. Because I have had artists that, you know, um, had horrible childhoods, and I've had them when I'm coaching them, they're like, "Oh, there's no way I'm putting that out there. There's no way. There's no way." But I think, but then we start talking about it, and I start giving them ways that they can share their struggles without sharing the details. Um, In some cases, they just once they've actually told me, all of a sudden they're telling everybody because it's like, it's a secret that you don't tell for so long, but then as soon as you tell someone and it feels like a relief and nothing bad happened to you because you shared it, and then you share it with a friend, and then you connect, and then before you know it, you wanna tell the world. But you do have to be depending if it's really sensitive nature, you do have to be prepared for any feedback that comes back that's negative. So I wouldn't recommend putting things out there before you're ready. So I would then go, okay, there's ways of saying that you've struggled without telling the details. You could say, um, I grew up, music wasn't allowed in my house. You don't have to say why music wasn't allowed in your house. It's just, um, or, I've dealt with a lot of stuff in my childhood but you don't have to necessarily tell the details until you're ready.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So then next comes the next phase is competitive edge, I believe.
Yeah. So that by then, we're almost to the part where everyone wants to skip to. But now you know exactly what you want, how to get there through the goal setting. You're confident, you know why you're doing this. You know your core values, you know your skills, strengths, weaknesses. You embrace your personality, you know kind of your image and your stories. Now it's time to share it with the world. But first, we want to figure out who we're sharing to. So, one, figuring out what's unique about you. So, that could be in your story. What is your unique thing? And then, what are your money makers? Like, what are you offering? Um, if you're a musician, okay, nobody's making money off of the actual recording anymore. But what merchandise are you going to offer? Is there going to be something unique? Are you going to offer vinyl? Are you going to have some kind of package? And what what are your money makers? Are you interested in licensing? Do you want to create music for film and television? Do you want just to create your music and then see if it fits with film and television? That's a good moneymaker. Publishing. It's just taking the time to really figure out what it is that you're going to be offering and then figuring out who's most likely to appreciate what you're offering. So that's when you get into a little research with target market. It's like, who is your ideal fan? How old are they? Male, female? Are they a student? What do they do for a living? Where do they live? and really getting to know who that ideal audience is. I coach down to who the exact person is because, yeah, again, the lazy way of doing things is saying, oh, between 18 and 45 and men and women that live in a city. Okay, that is not narrow at all. I coach through to exactly the person. You can have 2 people, you could have 3 people, but I wanna know even naming them. What's their name? The male, female? How old are they? Where do they live? Are they, creative? Are they a business person? Are they working in corporate? How much money do they make? What do they do in their free time? Do they travel? Do they have kids? Are they married? Like, really getting specific on who the exact ideal fan is.
So how do you do that though? Because I mean, I've heard this before, and I found it really. I have had difficulty answering those questions. How do you answer those questions? Do you just make it up? Is there some kind of way to research this? What is the actual strategy that you would run through with a client? Because I'm very curious myself as to how that actually works.
Well, part of it could be looking at who is your fan now. Um, who comes to your shows, who interacts with you online, who's connecting now, and then who are your favorite people to connect with. Um, and then you can also who are some artists that would be seen as similar to you? Similar maybe genre of music, similar style, that you would kinda have the same kind of fans. And so if you pick someone more known than you, they probably have a lot of followers, go look at and see who they are. Go look through their posts and their comments, who's commenting on their stuff. Go visit their pages, see who these people are, and you'll start to notice a trend. You'll start to notice that, okay, it's mostly female, mostly around 30. You just start seeing a trend basically.
Right. And how would you utilize this information once you have it?
Well, then once you have it, then we're moving on to the content creation phase 5. And so now, when you're really clear on who you're doing this for, and another thing for artists, you can think about a business person too. So you could have one ideal, which is more of a fan, but then if you really want to get into music licensing, then maybe one of your targets is a music supervisor. And you can kind of look up some music supervisors. What do they have in common? And so you can kind of have that person as well. So that when you're making content, when you're designing your website, when you're posting on social media, you're talking to that one person. And you can even say, "Oh, would if you name your ideal client or ideal fan, then you can go, would Lisa like this? Would Lisa be into this? Would they connect to it?" So that's where it comes in handy of all your messaging, everything that you say, everything photos, everything you put out there should be to attract that one person. And that person just represents a lot of people. And you will attract other people. Like, that's another fear people have of, like, you get too specific, then you're gonna alienate all the others. It's not true. You actually end up, you know, attracting more people to you and more different people to you.
Hmm. On the other hand, the danger in this, I guess, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate, is that you may start to worry too much about pleasing people or having people to approval, your ideal fans' approval. And I think some artists are afraid of losing their authenticity, of like, oh, if I just worry so much about making sure that my fans like what I do, then I might lose my authentic voice. Is that how would you counteract this?
Well, I would start with your authentic voice, and that's again, The stuff we covered in the beginning, really getting to know who you are, what you believe, I'm sure you put that into your music as well. Like your music and your performance, we don't want to change that. That's authentic to you. And then when you're figuring out who the ideal audience is, you're trying to figure out who's most likely to appreciate the authentic me. So you don't want to necessarily change your art to suit an audience. You want the audience that just is naturally going to appreciate what you do.
And then you need to, of course, engage them. Now, that's a big one because I find that a lot of artists struggle with this. I myself struggle with this. The social media engagement in a very saturated market where everybody's trying to get everyone's attention, and attention has become the most important. It is almost like money. And so how do you engage in a way that is not overwhelming, in a way that is authentic, in a way that is going to actually produce some results?
Well, part of it is what you post on social media in the captions and the photos. Like the photos, you want it to be authentic to you, whatever you choose, and the stories that you tell in your captions that will connect with people, and have a variety of different things that you talk about. Behind the scenes can be one, the about me could be another, your why can be another, personal insight on something. What else? Like, then it can be about what your offering is. You just don't wanna be sell, sell, sell all the time, so if you have, like, a good 10 different categories that you continuously kinda talk about, and just being consistent. Consistency is the huge one, because 'cause I've had so many artists go, "Well, I don't even wanna bother with social media. I tried for a while to post, but I just wasn't getting anything from it," so you kinda dismiss it as not important. But it's vital. You have to do it, you know? If you want to make a living at this, it's what you have to do. So if you just accept that and not fight it, a lot of times it's because they just don't really understand it. Take the time to learn it. It's a pain in the ass. Like, it's a lot of work. Um, yeah, it's a lot of work, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, and I find also that some artists find it distracting, anxiety provoking, because it's like the idea of how many likes did I get? Why am I not getting as many likes as that person over there? And it can feel, for some people, it can fuel some anxiety.
Well, a lot of it is having a system in place. So I teach a whole system of tackling the big monster of social media so that it's not as stressful every day. It might be at first while you're learning the system, but once it's in place, it's becomes less work. With the not getting engagement, I go, "Well, are you giving engagement?" And they're like, "No." Why do you expect someone's gonna comment on your post if you're not commenting on anyone else's? You need to give 10 times the engagement. If you want 5 people to comment on your post, then you better be commenting on 10 times that many. So, that's the key. You have to give engagement in order to get engagement, and it's consistency. It's posting every single day, multiple times a day. And it's having a system in place so that you don't have to stress about it every day. Um, and you start slow. Like, again, I have this whole system that I teach and coach on where you will get to a point where, like, okay, for example, me, I've gotten to a point where, um, I have a collection of photos. I have a collection of captions, stories. So that every week I'm not starting from scratch in planning my week's content. I have a collection. So that's part of it too is collect your stories, collect things to talk about, and then so at the beginning of the week I can go, Okay, I got this caption, maybe like edit it a little bit. Okay, which photo is going to go with that? Okay, there you go. And so it's a little faster because you have that system in place. And then it's just the consistency of like having a checklist, post on the feed, yes. Post on Facebook, yes. Make 5 comments on different people's, on ideal fan, Instagram. Make 5 comments on people's Facebook pages. Go make 5 comments in different groups that are tailored to your what you do. It's just being consistent with it and giving the engagement that you wanna get.
So when you talk about a system, are you also talking about scheduling? Because I mean, when I think about posting 5 times a day, I already feel immediately overwhelmed, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I don't want to do this. So is there a way that when you plan your content, you can perhaps schedule it or schedule it across different platforms? You know, what is that included in the system?
Right, yeah, part of it is, planning ahead and scheduling so that so if I have my week of posts scheduled and done, then that's less I have to do every day. So then the time I put towards social media, it can be put towards engaging. It can be put towards commenting. And once it becomes a system, you can do it really fast. You know, have don't spend hours on this, like just once you kind of know who you're targeting, go to those more famous people's accounts, go search in their comments, go comment on those fans' posts, and you just kind of quickly do it.
Right. So are you meaning joining Facebook groups or fan groups that these more famous people are have created and making friends with their fans? Is that kind of what you're talking about here?
Well, that's what I'm thinking for Instagram because they have if someone has over 100,000 followers, they're probably going to get a lot of comments. So you look at their posts, see who's commenting, go visit their pages and see if it's someone that looks and sounds like someone that would be into what you do and just kind of like a couple posts, comment on one, next. So you just do it fast and you don't really have to like be so concerned on if that person actually comes and follows you. Just keep putting it out there and it'll come back. It might not come back with the same people, but you just got to keep doing it. Um, for Facebook, I would join groups that are tailored to what it is that you do. Like I have a Facebook group called Unstoppable Musicians and Actors. There are many music business or musician groups on Facebook that are really great to make connections. It's really great to learn things. Getting these tips, like in my group, I always share any resources that I come up with, I see, or if there's an upcoming workshop or conference, I post it in there. And so it's a good way of keeping up to date on what's happening. And then you also there's a lot of things you learn. Like soon I will be doing videos and going live in my group and teaching things. So um, it's a good way to do that. And then there's also good ways of, just connecting. If it's music supervisors you want to really connect with, I'm sure there's a Facebook group for all music supervisors and people in publishing or whatever. And you just kind of go there and you can kind of learn and see who the people are.
So I'm wondering, is this system only for extroverts, or would it work for someone who's an introvert?
100% because I'm an introvert. And yeah, maybe it'll be easier if you're an extrovert, but um, it works either way. Honestly, like a lot of my my clients are introverts as well. Even performers who I always thought were extroverts, but no, a lot of them are introverts. And it's like, I find for introverts, it just takes a little bit more time and effort because we're more reluctant to be on camera or put ourselves out there. So, baby steps.
Right. So you wouldn't recommend somebody hiring a social media manager for this sort of work?
The funny thing is I'm a publicist and I'm telling you not to hire a publicist until you're ready because yes, and I know a lot of artists too, they wanna skip the work. They wanna skip everything that I just talked about. And, okay, if I can hire a radio promoter, a publicist, and a social media manager, then I don't have to do any of that, and I can just do my art. But without you doing this yourself, how can a social media manager, like, pretend to be you? It's not gonna be authentic, and people are gonna know, and I've had that where, um, an artist hired someone to take care of the social media, and her friends were going, "What's with your social media lately? It doesn't sound like you." But after you go through this, yes, then you hire people, because if you develop the system, you explore your stories, explore all this, and get in a habit of doing it yourself, then you could pass that on. So then you could pass that on to a social media manager who can manage it all for you. And you're providing them with the stories and captions, and then they can kind of learn your voice and plan it all for you. And then you still need to connect personally too, but you can have the bulk of it done by someone else. But if you try and skip to that now, then it's not gonna be authentic, and it's it's and same with publicity, it's like, I know you wanna hire a publicist so that, again, you don't have to do it yourself, but it's expensive, unless you have an unlimited budget, you know? But even then, it's not gonna be like, unless you're putting yourself out there, your authentic self, and telling your stories. I need you to tell your stories so that I can get media interested in you, but you gotta explore your story first.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I have to say, I went down the road myself and spent a lot of money that was basically wasted. And in the end, nothing really happened. And these people just copied and pasted, what they thought was my story, which wasn't really what it was. And so, yes, I can agree with you that that is a waste of money until you are ready, as you say.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, you hire a publicist and they can get you into places that you can't get yourself, and they could help you along, but you need to be doing the work too and giving them stuff to work with, you know? Um, when you're done with this, then yeah, hire a publicist because you'll be their publicist's dream because you're gonna already have a built-in following. You're gonna be active on social media. You're gonna have, my goal when I get to the end of this with you is that industry and media and fans, they're all coming to you. You've built this thing up. They're coming to you so that when you hire a publicist, then they can help you get to all those outlets that you can't get to on your own. Like, at some point at the end, I'll even teach you how to start doing your own publicity.
Okay. So if a listener of the podcast wants to have a bit of a look at these phases again in detail, I believe that you've got a document that you are giving away today.
Yeah. So it's a free resource, it's a free PDF download, and it will show you the 6 phases and then give you some additional resources, a little bit more explanation of each phase, and also links to, maybe podcast episodes that I've done that are on that topic, or just different ways of, furthering it, and then I also give a few getting started tips. And you can get that at, singdanceactthrive.com/freebie. And there's also the Facebook group, Unstoppable Musicians and Actors. So um, we'll be going through the phases in the group as well.
Right. So there will be links to Diane's Facebook group and to this freebie and to her website in the show notes. So I will include them there. So thank you very much, Diane, for all this information, for being with us today, and for helping musicians and actors attract their true fans.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It was fun.
That's all for this episode of Dare to Be Seen. Join the conversation on daretobeseencommunity.com and help us create an empowering community of independent female singer-songwriters, composers, and musicians who support one another. For show notes, resources, and information on today's episode, visit daretobeseenpodcast.com. And remember, shine your own unique light onto the world. It needs it.